Hello, my learned friends. Today we're back with more of the Great Ace Attorney. Part 2 investigating whatever the heck that says. Yeah, if you came from the last video, hello. I am still a little bit under the weather, but that's okay. Also, I'm a college student, and I just got a grade release. And I should really be fixing that, but it's fine. Alright, let's examine the body. Oh, the poor man. So young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Ah yes, Shakespeare has died. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for such an occasion as this, actually. I'm not sponsored by Dunkin', but if you want to sponsor me, Dunkin', your coffee's pretty egg. The book is titled The Beginner Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British Way. I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? What is they're doing a play here? This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though, for the nightly Shakespeare performances? Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Nanowrimo, with or without an audience. Obviously. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. What? Then you could practice your art every single day. I'll think about it. If you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Well, if that would help you achieve your goal. This I have to see. I'm curious if I'm supposed to leave. Hold on. What's nice about this game is it'll tell me, like, oh, we haven't done enough investigating. Yeah, we need to spend more time here. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we'll finish investigating. Because it's just going to make me come back anyway. What's this? And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. I see. Yes, now that you pointed it out. I can see that there's a slot just here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in here? That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold? Yes, or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. As we've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had on a property is extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh! What is it, Miss Sasato? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. Oh yes, it looks as though an amateur has broken out of a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shakespeare who did it, I wonder? Me and the lodge are renting this room. Ah, look at this, Mr. Nanowrimo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. What outside? Ooh, it's so cold outside. You can feel it through this gap. It did snow all last night. It would be cold. But more importantly, what is it on the edge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on an edge outside the window? I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window. I think perhaps we should take one. There are two after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at this soap. Do you see it? In the middle here. There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinamaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? Oh! It does! It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? And what's it doing in the ramshackle old room? Alright. This is when we see if they're gonna let me leave yet. Move. Nope. More time. Okay. It is nice that they do that. Okay, let's look at this thing. Look at these extravagant bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room with its grim, shady goings-on. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? I've always dreamt of being a king. Oh, I think you'd be more suited to a feudal lord. Demure, such like. What? With a Sean Mage top knot? Every Japanese man wishes he had a Sean. Okay, I'm uncultured. I don't know what that means. Oh, you look wonderful with one, and you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a Sean Mage and a sword? Okay, hold on. Uno momento, por favor. La 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 la. I'm looking it up. Images. Ah, yes. Classic. We love it. Not sure that would suit Ryunosuke. Okay, now have we examined everything? No! What else do we need to look at? Oh, what's that? This is a gas wall light, isn't it? It must be connected to a gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights, a gas stove. London really is a city of gas. Now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. Well, I much prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. One of the teacups that Mr. Shamspear and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's a bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamspear's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Sosuke-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Okay. I think now we've examined everything. Let's double check. Oh, what's this? There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yes, not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Prosecutor Lord Van... Okay, one sec. I'm gonna figure this out. Lord Van... Okay, wait. I need to make sure that's what... Lord Van Zyke's pronunciation. Is it Zeke? Zykes? Hold on. Oh, hold on. It's loading images. I don't need images. I need all. Van Zykes is a Dutch name, and I in Dutch and German pronounce E. Van Zeeks. Zeeks! Okay. We're chilling. Sorry if you've commented like long time ago being like, hey, this is how it's pronounced, but it's okay. I'm gonna forget too. Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste and that he should donate some to the needy. You can suggest it next time we meet. Okay, I think that's all. What? What else do we need to... Okay. Alright. Anything else down here? Oh, what's that? What's this? It looks like part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps, when you look around the room. There's no sign of a letter, or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there? Huh, she's right. And yet, we have found the torn-off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. I just got a gift. Huh. We better take this just in case. I'm not live streaming. I'm like, wait, a gift. Okay, now that should be everything. You hear the beeping? Someone just gave me a gift. I don't know who. Someone's feeling nice. Looks like you're having a good old snoop around, eh? Inspector Gregson, back so soon? After I threw that little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low, being back in a cell again so soon. I'm sure. We should probably... Hello? What's wrong, Mr. Naruto? Turn around! Hello? Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. You're supposed to be dead. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale, told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed! Oh, happy day! Hello? What? Walking Dead? You're supposed to be dead! The fella isn't dead at all? What was the nonsense he was saying, though? I think, yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. I knew I recognized that. A soliloquy of Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. So it was that the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to the nearby hospital for treatment, and Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime, whatever that now was. What in the world? What's the crime? Attempted murder, I guess. Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. Did no one check his pulse? It seems very likely that Mr. Shakespeare did consume poison, as we deduced. But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Sosuke-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me, could we have a word? Ah. He just ran off. I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? Right here. I do too, but I don't remember. He was talking here with William Shakespeare. interesting. Sir, how's the wife? Here we are again, the eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode. We're here because Mr. Garredeb's the one who discovered the incident this morning. Don't forget. You chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garredeb as anyone, really. Came straight back here after that business at the Bailey yesterday. I don't remember his accent either. Didn't expect to wake up to more bully nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garredeb? Yes, I suppose you'd like to know about the dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor room. Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? He's not dead, bro. Alright, let's have a bit of a conversation there, chap, shall we? What? I got recording again. Uno momento, por favor. Alright, I'm back. Alright, let's talk to Mr. Sir. What happened this morning, chap? It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bully answer. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door? Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't that a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning. That was unnecessary. Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door. The victim's name is Mr. Shamspear. I believe. Isn't that right? Yes, serious actor. Yes, William Shamspear. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe him? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is its cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bully screw loose. So hard to choose which category Sosuke-san would fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Shakespeare, of course, Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bar myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that. Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author, and we still have to study him in college and high school to this day. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. Sao? Like Sao or Sao? Sao? Help me in the comments, how do you pronounce that? It seems so incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamspeare would have had much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really, how rude. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, now, it must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out of the time. Mr. Garredeb noticed that there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up there. It was after 8 before Shamsby got back, and the chap was up until 1 past the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very, illuminating. Is everything alright, Mr. Sato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garrett, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly? Not a big fan of stairs, not with this blasted leg. Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean. Ah! That's a very good point. Can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants, is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bully outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I? Because they're a little sketchy. Then how did you know, Mr. Garadeb? It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I'd more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly. At the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. What? They dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. And that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't? What, mightn't it? Yes, of course, because everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable. Jolly good point. The fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless. Long worn out. And barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's always true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here and they grow brighter than the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You've got it. Of course, because when people come back home in the evening and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps first, or in fires. Clever. In point of fact, the room in the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. That's convenient. Gosh, that's fascinating. Fascinating, Mr. Karadeb. Absolutely fascinating. Oh well, nothing to it really. And I can't really see that it's going to help us with the case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrett is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. A good idea. We could tell him that Mr. Shamspear isn't dead. Oh, I can't go to the hospital. Prison. Poor thing. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Oh, yes? What is he? Tell me! Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes? He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Cursed! I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction, too. Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh? The victim that we thought was dead, he's come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible! Oh? I'm stuck in the cell, suffering for some silly, wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions. I'm sorry to hear that. The selfish shyster. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you were going to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly, wishy-washy, William! Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamspear was never actually dead in the first place. Ah, yes, that might make sense, and I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh? Oops. Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamspear, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer present. I am your lawyer, you dimwit. Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Why am I cursed like this? Alright, my dude. It's time to talk. Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell. But, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with the cursed case yesterday. The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening at past 9, it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamspear. So, you did go to the victim's room then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong! I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time. Then, what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. That ties in with what Mr. Garrett said, that the victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later that evening at around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I'd brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet. Who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate. I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject. Shakespeare! And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shamspear's tea? No! Never! Not at all. Team Juliet won. That was me. And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit. I swear it, categorically. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I've learned that it's no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I become recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember, and then 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it spoke to me. Fair enough. The rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no! He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. That's so fair, though. That's such a mood. When I realized I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave or blinkered. But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible the room's history really was. Gosh, was it really so awful? How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, it was just a feeling. The feeling of beady eyes boring into my back. Do you think that might just have been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare. All in all, the souls who died in that room lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me. That really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Shamsbury was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible. You're right, I knew it. That's why I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home. I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Whew. Susato-san knows how to make the man listen. Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse on my room as well. You mean Mr. Garrett? Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Ah, perhaps that may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps in his tenants' movements. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me by my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shamsbury isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come back around, he'll be able to tell us what happened. We'll get you released. Please, I do hope you're right. Excuse me. Excuse me? Inspector Gregson, I couldn't up over here in what you just said, and on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh, which do you want first? Always, every time, the bad news comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That's my guiding principle. Right, well, in that case, the good news is this. It is. Huh? Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Then why'd you ask me the preference? As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamsbury, was just unconscious. He's come round now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we managed to get a written statement from him already. Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume? Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell. Sorry, no, that's not all in the cards. What? Why ever not, Inspector? Mr. Shamsbury has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh dear. You don't mean... Sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointing the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. Ah! By sweet poison did he seek it to end my life. That wicked caitiff Soseki Natsume. No! So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparations. No! What the heck? And so, once again, Sosuke-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. Ooh. We'll see you next time in court again!